Right, welcome to BleakDystopia, and let's go. Oh wow. Wow. This guy over here. Oh, wait.
What was a world where every man, regardless of his contribution to society, had the same as the other man? Some would say it was the perfect example of how the world should be. There would be no worries about tomorrow. Everyone had what they needed. There would be no jealousy as your neighbor had the same as you did. Humans were all equal. There should be no disparities amongst people. That was exactly what the world had come to. After all, no one wanted to live in a world where insecurity was the order of the day. Families fighting for control of dynasties, governments wrestling for more power. Such was the nature of humans, wanting more and more. Did Plato not argue that private ownership of properties and goods would encourage selfishness? Was he not right? The powerful preyed on the weak. That was how it had always been. Oppression and suppression. Tools used to subdue people, like they were slaves. People rebelled, as they had always done to past government, and after long debates on how to move on, they decided that every man should get what he deserved. Equal treatment. That was the new religion. That was what the world had become. Right now, at this very moment, even though great philosophers only theorized about living in this kind of world, they believed it was the perfect world, one without violence, where human beings had learned to subdue themselves and become rational, morally upright people. Resources would thrive because people would be using them the right way. There would be no exploitation, no discrimination. There would be no rich, no poor, just people. The schools where children learned would teach them how to live in a society like that, a sort of brainwashing. If they wanted a happy society, they had to live in harmony with their neighbors. That in itself was not a bad thing, but where was the means to protect oneself if such a system failed? There were no measures in place. For the average Tom, Dick, and Harry, it seemed like a beautiful world. They had their wife and kids, and the government shared the resources amongst everyone as equally as they could. Who knew the world could be so peaceful? Digging deeper into this perfect glass ball the world was shaping out to be, there were some cracks that no one wanted to notice. Blissful ignorance. If it wasn't seen, it wasn't real. There were the optimists, those who clung tightly to hope that everyone could live in harmony. People didn't always have to live in chaos. The old world was plagued with wars, suicides, insecurity, and all different vices. People suffered under the tyranny of leaders and powerful men alike. Humans had gotten here already, meaning that everything could be even better. When there was cooperation, there was little that could not be achieved. That was how the Tower of Babel was built, right? Great buildings rose up, beautiful structures got erected, and the cities were pleasant to the eye. Most houses had the same structure and size, treating everyone as equally as possible. It was a beautiful world, one where everyone should feel safe in. Teach the masses contentment. That was the unspoken rule of the government.
Bro, how much
They had to present
dialogue
a
does this
united
guy have?
front. Together they abolished the concept of money. What determined what a person got was their worth to the society. It was an almost fail-safe form of ruling. It encouraged everyone to work hard. But human beings could never live with such restrictions for a long time. No matter how much one tried, there would always be the greedy, the selfish, and the cheats. Those kind of people would find their way of lives unappealing and look for ways to get more than they deserved. Crooks have been in existence since the dawn of time. They
Bro,
were always the ones responsible behind any government's upturning. They would look at equality and scoff, not wanting to be at the same level as anyone else. They
how
saw
much
the cracks
dialogue?
in the seemingly perfect world and decided that the only way to fix the cracks was to shatter the glass ball and rebuild it from scratch. They wanted to seize control, and they wouldn't rest until they got it. Their beliefs would be that people shouldn't live in a cage. Everyone should be able to control their own lives and get whatever they wanted, even if it meant cheating others. People should be able to choose whether they wanted to be good or bad. They would band together and overthrow the government. Everything that good men and women worked hard to achieve would eventually be destroyed. Whose fault would that be? Perhaps one could attribute it to the rotten nature of humans that some gave into. At first, the government might try to reason with them, thinking there could be a way out, as it usually was. Surely, they would have had multiple attempts by the people to overthrow them or cause unrest. This time around, people would be ready to give their lives to the cause. They no longer wanted to sit home while a bunch of nose-pressed people dictated what they could get or couldn't get. The innocent would be left to suffer the consequences of an overthrown government. It would be inevitable that the government would be the first place of attack. Every successful coup started with taking away the power from those in charge. The military would try to stop them, of course. But when sheer numbers of people revolt, there are only so many that could be killed or arrested. The military would be overwhelmed, and they would either flee from the violence or be destroyed by it. There would be little to no dignity, as people would be reduced to the lowest forms of themselves so they could live. Parents would abandon their children to run, and friends would betray one another. No one could have seen it coming. One day, families would be eating together, and playing
Bro,
together.
you gotta be kidding me.
Men and women would be working when utter mayhem would descend. Screams would fill the air as all manner of atrocities would be happening. What would be the impact of the fall of what should have been a perfect world? That's right, chaos. In a world where no one dictated what was right or wrong, and people could get away with anything, chaos would reign. It only showed that humans could not function as reasonable, morally upright individuals without the punishment-reward system. The punishment-reward system,
Bro,
to a
you know,
large
like,
extent, would keep most people on the right side, using their fear of punishment as an incentive to act right. This was once a perfect place, a harmonious society, and it was beyond unrecognizable now. The society had gone to pieces. The once perfect buildings and structures would be destroyed, set ablaze by ill-meaning people. Food would become a precious commodity, and people would hoard and kill for food. Rather than trying to solve the situation, they would want to live for themselves. It would only be a matter of time when food became scarce and the less privileged started to starve. Shouts and screams would fill the air as humans wreaked carnage on everything in their path. Greed and selfishness would always be human nature, exploiting the weak to make themselves feel more powerful. Power, it was just one word, but a lot of great men had sold their souls to the devil just to have it. No one could be equal to the other.
Bro, this guy.
People have different sets of
Fucking
skills,
hell.
talents, and abilities. Everyone has their own separate value system. Treating everyone the same way would actually be unfair.
A bit like
There
the
were many
skeleton over here.
variations on what people want their
Pardon
lives
me.
to look like, and it would simply be impossible
This is the last
to
person who
please
played.
everyone, no matter how hard the effort. The sky would turn gray with all the smoke and ashes drifting around. Damaged cars and properties seemed to be the new normal. People would live in broken down buildings, trying to survive another day. Bodies would litter the street, and it would be as if another world war happened. When there was no law, there was no sin. People would distrust one another for the longest time, and would be more content to steal, kill, and cheat others so they could survive. It would become a question of what a person would be capable of when it came to their own survival. Even good people would take bad
Bro,
and
how long are
evil
you gonna
decisions
talk for, like? Because I
to
really want to read
ensure
some of
their
these
own
people's stories.
survival. How much more those who are wicked and evil? Eventually, the world would bounce back and rise from the ashes.
Bro, every
to
time I
build
see
a
another
stable
fucking
society.
sentence pop up, I'm
But so
fucked.
many lives and properties would have been lost
Especially
before
when they
that
don't
could
have a
happen.
full stop.
A perfect
Over there.
world, living in harmony, ultimately destroyed by the people it was created for.
Thank fuck for that. Holy fucking shit. Bro, that was a painful fucking read through. Holy shit. I didn't even read it was dialogue, just bro. Right, let's read this shit. Okay, so soldier. When I was 30, I got recruited to a distant land to fight in a war against my wishes. I went. People talk about how terrible war is, and they are absolutely right. I saw it with my own eyes, witnessed how callous men can be and how low humans can be brought to. It was a horrible experience for me. Dead bodies littered the streets, and often people were outside begging for something to eat. It was really sad, and I was too young for that much pain. I met a little girl one day. She was alone, and I knew that there would be no one to take responsibility for her. She was only 4 at the time, and she was pretty smart. I took care of her and set her up in an abandoned warehouse not too far from my quarters. I visited with food and always made sure I locked the door behind me. I didn't want anything to happen to her. I had grown quite protective of her. I lately, I, I lately, no, I later learned that her parents died in the war I was fighting in. I adopted her, and when the war was finally over, I brought her back to my country as my daughter. She grew up to be a very wonderful girl, and I'm super grateful that I found her that fearful day. Now at 72, my daughter remains my pride and joy. She takes care of me, and really she's all I have. I often wonder what would have happened to us both if I didn't see her or decide to abort her. She's working on having a family of her own, and I couldn't be happier. I want her to be happy. That's dark, that man. That's dark. Director. Looking back now, who could have guessed that an ad in the newspaper with the pardon me would change my life? I often wondered that what would happen if I didn't find that ad. I would have had a pretty miserable life. There's no doubt about that. My passion was to be an actress ever since I was young. Unfortunately for me, my family was very disciplined and they had strict rules. My grandfather was a general in the army and my father was a captain. They were so conservative and small-minded. The women in my family didn't really have much to say in the affairs of the household. They were not in support of me becoming an actress and didn't allow me to pursue my dreams. The day I saw the ad, I was so happy. I applied in a secret. Of course, it was for an agency called City Theatres. They were looking for students for the conservatory. They stated that those chosen will both study and work. It was too good an opportunity to pass up. When I was called for the audition, I was so happy, but I managed to keep everything in so my family wouldn't suspect a thing. I meant to say, I was accepted for the audition, and that was the start of a successful career for me. It was the first step in my ladder of success. Turns out I was a pretty good actress. I had acted many movies, and now at 32 years, I've broadened my scope of a career by now becoming a director thanks to the experience I've gained as an actress. Being a director was a difficult as it should have been for me. I want to give other girls and boys the chance to fulfill their dreams and aspirations just as an ad in the newspaper did for me. That was the director. Fucking hell. It's kind of fucked up around here, isn't it? All that war going on. Let's see this. Musician. I find it very strange how one's life can change drastically and everything can suddenly turn around for the worse. I was a talented singer and people adored me even when the world was the way it was, I meant to say. Some people still loved hearing my music. Music was my joy, and my entire life my parents weren't supportive of me, but I still persevered. I believed that I shouldn't let them stop me from following my heart. Eventually, I had to cut them off so I could do what I really wanted to do. They wanted me to be a medical doctor, but I refused. My other siblings and can fulfill their dreams for them if they wanted to. I met a guy while I was on tour. He was very big fan of me and pushed me on days when I felt like giving up. We fell in love. Well, at least I fell in love with him, and I thought everything was going great. We talked about our plans for the future and how we would live. I told him I had always wanted a family, and sooner or later I would have to quit doing music so I could focus on my family. All my hopes and dreams were dashed on the day I woke up to find out that he had left me. He stole my money and ran away. I had given him access to pretty much everything, and he took advantage of that to steal from me. My whole world shattered, and it felt like it wasn't going to survive it. Now I've quit doing music, and I don't know if I'll ever continue. I feel like I still have my while life ahead of me. I'm 25 and I can still make something worthwhile for myself. I thought there was something over here. How do we get in here though? Can I open this door? It's quite a lot over here. Oh. Okay, let's go. How do I even get in there? I never know, there might be something over here first. Oh, here. There's quite a few stories over here, man. Let's check out this guy over here. Fashion designer. Being a fashion designer with big dreams wasn't an easy thing in a world like this. This wasn't an easy thing. It seemed like our perfect society didn't give room for creative to showcase their talent anymore. Still, I pushed forward till I got my big break. I'm currently in my 40s, and there is so much that I want to do, so much I want to see. Growing up, I had a difficult life, made only worse in my youth. Life hasn't been kind to me, but I still persevered. My parents died when I was just a teenager and I was left alone. I had no one to turn to and had to live on the streets for a long time. I stole and did a lot of things that I'm not proud of just so I could survive. Survival want was foremost in my mind, and I did anything I could just to live. Life was brutal for people that didn't have anything. No one cares about us. Many people died in the streets with no one to even bury them. I purposed within me never to end up like them. I took charge of my own life and rewrote my own story. After all, our lives are the one thing that we have some control over. I managed to make something good out of my own life. I started to learn fashion designing, and one day I designed a dress that someone was willing to pay a lot of money for. That was how my life story changed. I opened my own fashion line, and now I'm very successful. My thought was that I would replace the land fortune with all the beautiful clothes I sold. Maybe one day my dream will come true. Let's go, man. Let's go. Taylor, when I was 6, my father was martyred. It's really a tragic story. He was killed while flying the flag. His body was never recovered. They only brought back a photo and a flag they found in his pocket. It was a photo of my father and mother. I had to struggle on my own, and it was mostly because my mother was overcome with grief for the first year or so. She would rarely leave the house. I had to take care of her even at my young age. I didn't fully understand what happened. All I knew was that my father wasn't coming back. Wasn't until about a year had passed and I felt terribly sick that my mother started to take no take to a responsibility. She apologized and took care of me. She said she wouldn't be able to survive it if I died too. I'm 70 years old and those memories are still engraved in my mind. I feel like they had a great influence on who I turned out to be. I'm a tailor, but not the usual tailor. I don't see clothes. I'm different from a standard tailor. I work on flags, the country flags, the flag. I see them and then I paint them. Maybe it's because of my father, because he was killed while flying the flag. I just have the obsession with flags. It's not something I question, it's mostly just like a task, a job that needs to be done. I don't have a family, I live alone. Who would have wanted to put up with a miserable old sod like myself? I was fine being myself. I don't get lonely because I have flags to paint. They take a lot of time and do well to keep my mind occupied. That was the tailor. Salesman. Why can't I find children to crowd around my shop, eager to eat my candies? I work as a confectioner and I have my own shop. It's a small shop, but it provides me with everything I need. I love selling colorful candies and I make them from scratch myself. It is tough work, but I enjoy it. The look of genuine happiness and pure bliss on the kids' faces fills me with so much satisfaction. Um, I only have a son and he's in his teenage years. My wife died from cancer just this past year. It hasn't been easy living without her, but we've managed to get by. She was really a joy to be around and away from us. Sometimes I wonder who's having the toughest time between my son and I. I know it's wrong to compare suffering, but there's just so much in the world I wished I could have shielded him from. After the disaster that happened, I haven't seen any happy children around again. My business has gone downhill too because children hardly come around to buy candies. It is really sad. The disaster that led to many deaths and destruction of properties has also planted sorrow in the hearts of many. I'm just glad that this side of town was spared from what befell the other cities. I hope that we can move on from this unfortunate incident and learns learn to be happy again. At least the children shouldn't have to go through things like this. Their worries should be about little things, about their favorite shows and whether they wanted more food. I want to be able to see the smiles on children's faces as they enjoy something simple like eating candies. I believe it will happen soon. I'll keep making candies and selling them. That's the salesman. God, there's quite a few over here, like. What about over here? Fucking hell. It feels like me fucking getting a 6-pack on me jaw, the amount of fucking talking. Holy shit. There's an upstairs as well. Pardon me. Let's go. Chafferer, I think that's what it says. What is going on here? That was my exact thought when I returned to my country. I used to work as a chauffeur, whatever that is, just to support the party I was a member of at. Pardon me. That time I went abroad as a driver, but unfortunately I couldn't return to my country. A group kidnapped me and took me hostage. It was scary and I really thought I was going to die. I was stripped of everything I had and was released after a few months. Penniless, I had to find a way to get back home to my family. All my efforts to contact them weren't successful, and I couldn't even imagine what they must have been going through. They must have thought I died or abandoned them. I started doing odd jobs here and there and started working so I could afford another flight back home. It took me 23 years of overworking and hustling to be able to survive in the new country I found myself, and to be able to show my family at home that I wasn't returning empty-handed. Now being back, I can see that wasn't so much with the has changed. The country wasn't as, oh god, as I left it. Even my family, my wife fainted when she saw me, probably thinking that I was a ghost. My children no longer recognize me. They don't know who I am. I have become a total stranger to the people I love the most. They are slowly coming to accept me back after I explained everything that happened to me when I traveled. It was indeed a misfortune. Everything I believed in and shattered. I don't even understand what happened to my beloved country. How it went from this bubbly society filled with life and colours to this dull, controlled life I have survived in a place I didn't know before. I will survive here too. And that was the chauffeur. Here we go. Accountant. I work as an accountant, live a pretty basic life. I didn't go to college though, but I had certification for accounting from a business school. I'm interested in history. I want to learn about how the world was in the past. Did people have it as hard as we currently do now? It's almost like people have forgotten how to be happy. Pardon me. It's really sad. My mother and father are farmers and they live in countryside. In the countryside, their lives were simple, and I visit them from time to time. Though I've tried to move them to the city, they claim that they've had enough of whatever was going on in the city and just want to live a peacefully. Can't say I blame them. They have gone through a lot. They were around when the society crumbled and when I was little. All the stories they told me about that period sounded like horror stories. It wasn't something I could comprehend. The weird people were killed and the weird things were destroyed. I'm in my 40s and I have a fiance. We got engaged not so long ago and we'll be married soon. I earned enough money so I know I can take care of my family. Every evening when I get back from work, I would look myself in my room and do research on history and philosophy. They are extremely vast fields that I doubt I'll be able to exhaust anytime soon. That's what I keep researching because I want to know more. I want to understand better what happened all those many years ago has to be studied so something like that doesn't happen again. It's more like a pastime for me, something I could do to recover from work, stress, history, and philosophy have become my second life. I have probably learned enough to be a degree holder in those fields. That's what I mean, those fields. That's the accountant. I've done the chauffeur. Wow. Did I do this one? Oh yeah, I did. That was the Here we go. Here's some stairs over here. That's right in front of my face. Here's one here. This one's like spaced out. Engineer. I study about electronics and communication in college and I still work as an engineer now. I'm in my 30s and absolutely hate the fact that I'm getting old so fast. There are some things I used to be able to do easily that I can't do anymore. Now I have to be careful when I'm bending down because of my bones. When I was 30, our house burned down and my two children died in the fire. It was a tragic incident and I don't think myself and my wife have recovered from it. Well, obviously I haven't because since that incident I haven't said a word to anyone. I still hear the screams of my children. Sometimes the reports said, pardon me, that the fire, the cause of the fire was unclear, but it was caused by some poisonous gas. I have a secret that no one knows. I own a secret printing house. I've always loved to read, and after the fire accident, I buried myself in the books even more. The idea came to me one day to start up a printing press, and I did. I worked in secret. My wife knows nothing about it, and neither do my neighbors. I bought a warehouse downtown, and I made sure it couldn't be traced back to me. The reason is because I print and distribute books that have been tagged forbidden to be read. In the world, I thought that wasn't unfair. People had a right to read whatever they wanted and could decide on their own. We don't need some monarchy type of government putting bans on what we can read. I mean, that has to be crossing the line in human rights. It pains me that this is what the world has become. I know that thought cannot be prevented, and as long as people can still think for themselves, Let them be free to choose what to read. Engineer. Wow, that's wild. God. Let's see this. Butcher. My life has taken a turn for better. After growing up with an abusive father, it didn't seem like I was getting to have a good life. My childhood have greatly shaped how I grew up. To be honest, I was very insecure and ran at the first sign of trouble or violence. I still have scares from when my father injured me. It isn't something I wish for anyone. I left home and didn't look back when I was 18 and had to look after myself. Pardon me. It was the best decision I made for myself. From there on, I only had myself to focus on until I met my wife. I met my wife when I was 30, and I'll just say that she is the best thing that has ever happened to me. Maybe the only good thing, if I'm being serious. She showed me that I could live with someone and be happy. She literally turned my life around for the better. I'm grateful that I met her and that she has stuck with me all these years. She helped me unlearn all the negative ideologies that I had still had even after many years. I was physically away from my father, but there were some things that were still a part of me. Now I'm 46 and life has been great. I butcher made for work, and my wife is a music teacher. She taught me how to play the guitar. When we come back home from work, we sit our children down and give them guitar lessons. It's usually a great time for us to bond and share details about our days. I made a promise to myself that if pardon me, to myself that if I ever had children, I would raise them in the most loving way possible, and I believe that that is exactly what I'm doing. Let's go. Let's go, boyo. Who's this? Fisherman. Alright, let's go. I think fishing is one of the best things that I've discovered for myself to do. I used to be a fabricator and I was very good to the extent that I owned my own weapons factory. I designed many weapons for the defense of the country for reasons. I mean, for the country for years, and it made me extremely rich. The government was ready to pay a lot for the weapons that I was making, and it was great. What changed everything for me was when my son committed suicide with one of the weapons from my factory, a weapon that I designed. It felt like my it's meant to be my whole world crashed at that point. I had to close my factory because of everything that happened. I decided to become a fisherman, and that is what I do with my life. I catch fish. I live alone in a small cottage at the edge of the town and don't have any visitors. I thought I was doing a great job designing and making weapons for my country, but in reality I wasn't. I have seen firsthand the damage those weapons can cause, and the country would have used them to kill innocent people. It was just how war worked. My son was supposed to inherit my business, but unfortunately that wasn't possible anymore. I regretted not spending more time with him. I guess that was part of the reason. It's going to be part of the reason. He killed himself. He felt unloved and unwanted. I'm 63 years old, and I still take out my small boat myself and go out into the sea to fish. The sea calms me, and fishing helps me to focus my thoughts. I don't know if I'll ever find happiness again. The only thing I can do is to live and survive another day. Fisherman. Right, I'm gonna have a drink. Right, let's go. Toy maker. Toy making had been in my family for years. I learned how to make toys from my grandfather, and he learned it from his own father. It is pretty much all I have left of the memories they left behind. My parents died in a car accident when I was just clocking two. My grandfather took care of me before he pardon me. He died when I was 12. My parents were both the only child of the parents. I know I should have been excited to start a new family, but I'm antisocial. I haven't been the same since my grandfather died. I ask wasn't sent to the orphanage, and as funny as it sounds, pardon me, as a 12-year-old was a lot of responsibility for one orphanage, not like I wanted to be kept in one. I only got a job as a cleaner after begging and promising not be on the scenes, as my boss had put it. The person I was really close with was my boss, and that was because of his family. Buy some toys from my shop. I paid the mortgage of my grandfather shop when I was about 15. The town had tried, but they didn't help enough. A lot of customers come in here with their families, and I will admit, though it helped at first, but later it always seems like they are showing off. A lot of affection in my eyes. I really should, I really should start to, but I'm not sure. And one would want to settle down with a 56 years old life been been hard for me. It's been pretty tough. I sit down sometime and think about what would had happened if I made different choices, if I had begged to be part of the orphanage, but a boy should have some shame. Toy maker. Wait, there's an extra floor. Yo, there is a lot of stories here, man. let's see this. Prosecutor. Being a young prosecutor has a list of challenges. Though I'm 34, I'm still looked down on in my field because some claim I lack the experience and foresight that they have. I am the prosecutor for people accused of being involved in the protests. Protests are basically a crime nowadays because it took a protest if some sort of destabilize the economy, and it's led to destruction of a lot of lives and properties. I'm very successful in my job, and I know it will only get bigger from here. I take care of my mum and she visits me sometimes. My dad died from a heart attack a few years ago, and my mum was very sad about it. For a long time I am all she has now. She always tells me to be careful and not let work consume my entire life. She wants me to get married so I can be happy. It doesn't matter how many times I've told her that my job makes me happy. I don't know if I want to get married. It seems like so much stress. My family might keep me from doing my job well, even though I'm being looked down on by many people. My success rates has made them unable to criticize me much. I'm currently working on an important case. 3 children are involved in the case, and personally, I had a lot of thoughts and feelings about it. It took a lot of thought to make the right decision. But eventually, they were found guilty. The decision was the supreme punishment, and I never thought it was going to be like that. I still think about it and wonder why I feel unsettled about the decision. I guess it's because they're just children. Maybe my job. That was the prosecutor. Okay. Let's go. Shoemaker. It is tiring, it really is. I want to rest one day and just lay down, but there's no one to watch over my business. My 4 children were not home anymore, and as much as I hate to admit it, it is not the same without them. I'm poor and I have to keep working if I want to survive. My first 2 children want to leave the country when they finish school and the younger 2 were in university. They all were allowed to choose their careers, but there was not enough money to fund them. No one wants to be like the old man at the age of 60 when some were able to enjoy being the grandparents. I don't have the time to think about it within work. My kids say I stress myself a lot. That's it. That it is my business and I should rest. It is hard not having those kids around as much as the pains in the neck. I still love my kids. The small apartment I rented down the hills has never been this quiet. The owner was nice to connect collect money when I had it, which was not always. I hardly have enough money for each day, so I am happy that the kids are making waves out there. Being a carpenter was not really all that bad, but my kids call it old-fashioned. I always tell them that I was not this privileged to choose my work when I was young. but they don't believe me. Pardon me. I don't really care much about the town, but I'll see it there are very good people in it. I'm not really interested in talking to people, but it was not like I had the time to do so. My time is spent mostly on carpentry works. The only time I get the time to talk to the townspeople is when I'm working for them. Let's go.